Welcome to Tamara Lynette Tales. I'm Tamara, and I spill the tea on your favorite reality stars. Married at First Sight Season 14 Boston Reunion Part 1. Now, I've been waiting for this day, the reunion. As we know, it doesn't really matter what they say on Decision Day if their decisions don't stick. I was really looking forward to hearing their stories. For your information, Decision Day was in September of 2021, and the reunion was taped about 5 months later in February of 2022. So Kevin introduced them as having a playful nature that was extremely fun to watch. Really? Which version of the show did you see? Kevin started out the interview by saying he didn't think they were going to work out, but what we all found out is that they balanced each other out perfectly. I would never describe them as, nor have I ever witnessed them being a perfect balance. Kevin, stop reading those cards and spit some truths based on what you actually saw. If you even watched the show. They showed multiple clips of Tootie complaining about needing a wife who cooks. Kevin asked him how it felt to watch those moments back. Tootie said he has two perspectives of those moments. He needs to watch his tone and how he presents his points of view. And second, he can't believe how stern and so crazy about needing her to cook he was about the whole thing. Katina, in her Cleopatra wig, said that it was tough because she was trying her best and he kept telling her she was coming up short and that his insults hurt her feelings. So in one breath, she clarified that she does know how to cook. Then in the next breath, she told a story about undercooking some chicken in the air fryer and they both bit into raw chicken. Ugh. Okay, Katina, this is gross and scary. But apparently, Tootie had an over-the-top reaction accusing her of not caring or knowing how to cook. Since the show ended, he no longer expects a home-cooked meal every night. After some self-reflection, he realized that she works a full-time job too and sometimes gets tired. So he definitely changed his tune on that one because he was hell-bent on the fact that she worked from home but didn't actually do any work. During the season, she said her gut was telling her to be patient with Tootie and that he would eventually come around, but she was also wondering if she was being stupid. Girl, we were all wondering that. Then she said you can't be a weak person and be in a relationship with him because he's so confident in himself. Is making a relationship work with a man who questions your womanhood on national TV a sign of strength though? So Kevin set Tootie up to have a moment with Katina by asking him if there is something that he could do to give her validation. And so Tootie got on one knee and offered up a nice size ring in exchange for continuing the journey of marriage with him. Excuse me, but where was the box with the name of the jeweler inside? We barely got a close-up of that ring, let alone multiple plugs for the jewelry store like we did for Noisy's ring. Looks like Tootie paid for this one out of his own pocket. Katina cried and she was speechless. This is a big-ass ring. She was more mesmerized by the ring than what Tootie had to say at this point. So he complimented her for not giving in to all the negative messages that people said about him on social media and for having faith in him. And she told him that she loved him and said this was her first time saying I love you to him. I don't know if I can trust them when they claim to hit these types of milestones, saying I love you, having sex for the first time, and so forth. They're a little suspect. Speaking of sex, they played a clip where Katina and Tootie met with Pastor Cal, and Tootie was lightheartedly complaining that Katina will say she's gonna do something, but doesn't always do it. Turns out he was talking about her cleaning his pickle, licking the lollipop, rocking out his microphone. I told you these two were messing around. This conversation was about 8 days into their marriage. I'm convinced that they left that MAFS apartment with a dent in the mattress. So Kevin played clips of them fighting over the dating app, and Tootie said that after watching himself, he's surprised that he's come this far in life with no one calling him out on his behavior and say something like, dude, you're acting like an ass. I find it hard to believe that you've never been called an ass before, sir. Kevin was practically gushing over Tootie when he was complimenting him on how serious he took the show and the process. He's like, That's what this show is all about. I agree that Tootie did seem to take this very serious. Serious about getting his needs met, no matter how it hurt Katina's little feelings. So in 5 years, they plan to have a house, kid, dog, and a pool. And he sold his house because he said if Isaac is gone, then he needs to distance himself from everything. The people, places, the house where he used to get his Isaac on. Okay, I added that part. But I'm not surprised that these two are still together, only because Katina seemed determined to win him over. She got her ring and a man. I truly hope he has changed for the better. And I hope there's a lot of peace, kindness, and happiness in the mix as well. At the beginning of the show, when they were all together, they played a clip we didn't get to see during the season. It was the ladies chatting about the activities they did with their husbands the day before. And so when it was Hostage's turn, she lied about tennis and said it was super fun. So Kevin called her out on that and asked her why she lied. She said she didn't feel comfortable sharing what happened with everyone sitting there. But that seems to be part of her theme throughout her 10 days on the show. Whenever she cut up and acted a fool during an event, the next day she claimed she wasn't comfortable talking about it with the others. Didn't feel comfortable sharing a hotel room. Didn't feel comfortable telling his mom the truth about their wedding night. Didn't feel comfortable sitting next to him on the plane. Didn't feel comfortable with his breathing pattern. Girl, you better take responsibility for your actions or do better. So Kevin asked about her wanting to move into the apartments just to hang out with the girls. She said that's false. She wanted to split the apartment because they both live far and thought if they were going to keep filming, that was only fair if they split the time and the commute. I wish we would have seen Kevin press her about this a little bit more, because if it wasn't about her just hanging out with the girls, then was she going to try and make it work with Chris? So later they had their one-on-one with Kevin, and before he could ask a question, Hostage asked if she could make a little speech first and basically said, I came into this with the purest intentions. When I didn't get what I asked for, I panicked and I didn't handle myself the way I would have liked, and I'm sorry for that. And I want everyone to know that I came into this for the right reasons. Oh, that was a beautiful speech. Those words completely changed America's mind about you. Girl, please, there is nothing you can say that will make us unhear those horrible things you said during your little 10-day stint on this show. Kevin asked her about why she behaved the way she did and what did Chris do to her to make her, as she was claiming, behave a certain type of way. He's not my physical type, and when I talked to his 3 groomsmen, I was like, I don't see how we are compatible. We don't share the same core values and beliefs. Okay, I will say this in her defense. Politically, she seems to be conservative and he seems to lean more liberal. This show tends to ignore political affiliation and beliefs, which is extremely naive given our current divide in this country. However, she seems to have based her entire opinion of Chris on his oversharing, babbling groomsmen, because she's referred to them multiple times throughout the season, more so than things Chris has actually done or said directly to her. So Chris said that he didn't realize how bad she was talking about him behind his back until he watched the show. If he would have known that she had called him a shitty car salesman who sells houses and the other disgusting things she said, he would have bailed a lot sooner. So she took no responsibility for her words. None. She claims that she wasn't aware of what she was saying and doing and would never want to hurt someone's feelings. No, she wasn't aware that her little mean girl rants were being recorded. So now it's time to do a little damage control. Too little too late, Hostage. So Kevin asked a good question. Since she knew this was not going to work out, why then did she get on a plane and fly to the honeymoon? She said, I thought this is what I had to do. Now, she might be telling the truth on this one, because remember, the wedding on the show is not legal. They are taken to a courthouse the following Monday to get legally married and sign paperwork. So at the courthouse, she was on the phone with her lawyer. This was about a day before the honeymoon, and she was trying to see if she can get out of having to legally marry Chris. So before she called her lawyer, I'm pretty sure she would have had a conversation or two with her producers first. So they had to be enforcing their contract on her, saying she had to go through with the show. Otherwise, she would not have gotten legally married and continued on the show. But I get where the producers are coming from, though, because at this point, she hadn't given Chris a chance, and it's too late to replace them with a different couple, and they were already on the hook for paying a crew for them for the entire season. Anyway, they showed a clip of her on the honeymoon saying that, shouldn't one of them hop on a plane and fly here? And producers ask, who? An expert? I mean, we can call them. No, I don't want to speak to them. I hate them. They did this to me. Girl, make up your mind. One second you want them on a plane to come talk to you, and the next second you hate them and want nothing to do with them. You're a whole hot mess. Kevin reflected on their decision day and asked Chris how hard was it to make that decision. He said, not very. Chris was so over her and her fake tears. He wanted nothing to do with this good person. So much so, he could barely stay on that couch. At one point, I was like, get this man a beanbag or something, because he's about to roll onto the floor. Mark lost about 40 pounds and looked really good in his suit and sneakers. Kevin asked Karen if she thought saying that she was done with Mark so many times throughout the marriage was a mistake. She didn't take responsibility for it and said that she had a hard time learning who Mark was and that he was different in front of the cameras than he was behind them. Off camera, he was attached to his phone and super pessimistic. On camera, he was Mark the Shark. Kevin asked if they are still together, and Karen said absolutely not. So Karen's version of what happened after decision day was she helped Mark renovate his family's house. Mark threatened to kick her out of the house. He threatened to change the locks, and he was telling her on move-in day that he's not sure if it's a good idea for them to be together. But meanwhile, she had already given up her apartment. Mark's version is that they got into nasty fights where she would go for his throat and threaten him to the point where he felt bullied by her. Mark always seemed a little scared of her. I'm surprised he put any effort to make that marriage work after decision day. Karen said that she wrote down her thoughts because she sometimes gets flustered when she's talking. So she proceeds to read this letter where she is claiming to have helped him through losing his home, his job, and remodeling his family house. She took credit for him getting a new job that pays more than he's ever made, and through the magic of Lindsey, I have left your entire life better than what it was before you met me, but you have done nothing to enhance my life because you are not other focused. Unless they are a cartoon superhero who refers to themselves as being magical. While her letter was self-serving and a pat on her own back, she wasn't wrong. Mark seemed to have something major happen every week, and she stepped up and helped him each time. I will definitely give her credit for that, but she's kind of like a volunteer who wants to get paid. Kevin asked Mark what he thought of Karen's letter, and Mark says, "Oh man, I didn't know we were writing things." He says that the positives don't outweigh the explosive fights and which way the relationship could have gone without them. I don't understand what he expected to happen after decision day. Are any of us surprised that he had horrible fights after the cameras went away? No. So why didn't he know? In the end, they are no longer together. She rented a condo in Northern California and got a new job that she describes as fantastic. She said, "I feel like I do better far away from my family, and I value intellect, and there are a lot of those types of people where I live now." She said Mark has no intellect, and she's very smart and usually does well with engineers. This was very much a "I'm a good person" type of speech, but instead it was a "I'm a smart person." But just like being a good person, if you have to tell us you were smart, you probably aren't. She seems very bitter towards Mark, and she says she does not want him in her life. I don't think he's having any sleepless nights over losing her, though. Jasmina was sitting so close to Picky that they only needed one cushion on that couch. She was all up on his lap. I don't even think he could move his right arm. They talked about Jasmina using the word aggressive when describing Picky's demeanor at the honeymoon. He doesn't agree that he was aggressive. However, on the night that incident happened, he did not take issue with her using that word. Instead, he agreed with her and apologized. After he apologized, he said, "It's never intentional for me to sound like abrasive or aggressive or condescending or like I don't care, but I understand that it how it can come across like that. So in the moment he agreed, but apparently after he thought about it, he changed his mind. But Jasmine said for a month after she called him aggressive, he stopped speaking to her. He said it was because in that moment, he felt that he did his best in communicating with her, and she saw it as aggressive. And he didn't feel he had the tools to communicate with her and not have her label him as aggressive again. But referring back to that night when it was fresh in both of their minds, he admitted that this was an ongoing problem that he had going into the marriage. So that night, Jasmine said, "But I think your delivery," and he says, "yeah," and the aggressiveness to it, and he says, "yeah," just like basically telling me how I should apologize to someone. That just like threw me off guard. So he says, "I do apologize for that. That's something I'm working on. It's an issue that, like, my sisters told me, my friends have told me, and past relationships." To me, the only thing they seemed to agree upon that day was that his behavior was aggressive. Anyway, Jasmine repeated what we heard them say during the season, and that's that Dr. Viviana's exercise helped them get back on track. They both admitted that they couldn't stand each other in the beginning. No shocker there. We couldn't stand y'all either. Okay, just kidding. Well, sorta. Kevin asked them if they are still together, and they both started doing a silly little drum roll thing with their hands, but didn't say anything. Like, hello, after the drum roll stops, you're supposed to give the answer. Kevin was annoyed. He was like, "Why are y'all playing games? Are you still together?" Picky said they are no longer together. They broke up about 2 weeks after decision day. Picky broke it off because he felt like he wasn't getting anything out of the relationship. Jasmine said she felt like she was putting more effort in than he was, and has receipts that she texted him every day to try to have a conversation with him, whereas he only made plans to see her one time. Now, after living together for 8 weeks and saying yes on decision day, they relied on texting to build their marriage. It didn't sound like they had a plan on how they were going to stay connected. I thought they would have already arranged to see each other a certain number of days a week, plus chat on the phone every day. Y'all weren't serious about this relationship. Stop playing. She said that they got into a very nasty argument because Picky told her that she wasn't putting in any effort. So after that argument, she was done. But he seemed to have felt a certain type of way because he was like, "So after that argument, you were ready to throw in the towel because the argument didn't go a certain way? Especially since before the argument, you thought we had a chance?" And she was like, "Yep." But he's the one who ultimately broke it off, so I couldn't understand why he seemed upset that she agreed with him when he said that they should end it. Maybe he didn't really mean it and got called out on his bluff. Kevin broke it down like this. From the moment Jasmine walked down the aisle, Picky thought he found a wife, and Jasmine was never into him and put Picky in the friend zone from day one, and he never made it out of the friend zone. That's what I feel happened too, and Jasmine pretty much agreed. But at the same time, they talked about Picky not giving compliments to let Jasmine know that he was actually interested either. So Jasmine complimented him all the time apparently, but he didn't reciprocate even after she brought it up to him. So he says that she kept telling him that she's not there yet, so that kept him from complimenting her. Based on how the experts, Keisha from After Party, Jasmine, and now Kevin have gotten on Picky about not being flirtatious with Jasmine, I get the feeling that they were basically saying that he had no game. But in terms of Jasmine, even after hearing Jasmine's friend tell her that she always had a problem with people's tone, no one seemed to bring that up as being part of the problem in their marriage, because his tone is all we heard in the beginning. So at the beginning of the show, when they were all together, they played a clip from the retreat where Karen made fun of Noisy wanting to be a stay-at-home mom when Steve doesn't have a job. Steve said from almost the beginning, he knew that he and Karen's energy were not going to connect, so he tried to stay away from her. So this was a little bit of tea. I never noticed it, but apparently Steve didn't like Karen. Not a surprise, just a revelation. He said that she talked trash about him behind his back at the retreat. He warned Noisy not to share their secrets with her because she shouldn't be trusted. Apparently, Noisy told her about she and Steve having sex, and Karen ran and told the producer. And the producer told Noisy and Steve that Karen was the source, but as usual, Karen denies any wrongdoing and denied that she said anything. She is a very smart person after all. So later they sit down one-on-one with Kevin, and she says she hasn't changed her last name to Moy yet. She's still thinking about it. Girl, you better take that rich man's last name. Shoot. They did move in together, but she kept her studio apartment. I can't help but to wonder if she still has a little bit of doubt about the relationship, because what needs to happen before she lets go of her place? So they're currently in couples counseling, and I'm not mad at them looking elsewhere for the help they really needed from the experts during the entire season. As for getting a job, Steve said he gave her a timetable that he would get a job at a certain point in the future if that is what needs to happen. Now, Kevin straight out asked him, "How big is your bank account?" Now, I think that's a funny question, but really, it's nobody's business how much money this man has in his account, unless everybody, including Kevin, is going to reveal their account information. If that's the case, hey, open up those bank apps. Let's see it. Steve didn't answer the question. He basically said that he's made some good investments, and even in crypto early on, and has had various businesses that have perked up his little bank account. In other words, he's sitting on enough cash to shut Noisy the hell up. Kevin asked her if she still wants 3 kids, and she said 3 is still her target number, but she's a little flexible now, but still plans to start in about a year. Now, I wonder if she'll still keep her studio after the baby is born. Noisy's sibling Sriracha came on stage. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I always want to run a comb through Sriracha's wigs. They just need a little more loving. Now, Sriracha said the family is no longer worried about Steve's finances, but Noisy and Steve need to learn how to communicate effectively. Sriracha's advice was for them to say what you feel, but just because you're not yelling doesn't mean you're not being condescending. Kevin asked, "Who are you saying that to?" Okay, because that was very specific advice, like throwing a little shade. Steve said that say how you feel was directed at Noisy, but condescending was directed at him because he needs to work on his delivery. I just don't get a warm and fuzzy feeling from this couple. Like, I want to root for them, but I haven't seen why I should. It kind of feels like they are still doing the show, but without the cameras. Like they're still in like a trial period, testing the waters to see if they want to stay married or get a divorce.